Good and welcome to the Titans, live from London, UK, all the way to the US of A and worldwide. I'm your host, Kalam. This is Talk with the Titans. Oh man, wow, we've got a exclusive, a world exclusive show going on right about now with the beloved scribe himself, Asar Imhotep. And before we even get the show properly started, before we get it properly percolating, I'm going to need you guys to do me, the usual, what we do over here on Science TV. Hit the like button straight away because you already know it's going to be jam-packed, filled with information. But I'm going to need you guys, right, to do one thing for me as well. Please go and get yourselves a piece of paper and a pen because we're going to go into some real hard hitting information. And I fear, right, this may go over your heads. So before it does go over your heads, make sure you take every single note in. All right. Take your pen, scribble notes down because the brother is literally a powerhouse. The research center is him. Full stop. All right. So for those of you guys who don't know who Asar Imhotep is, Asar Imhotep is a cultural cultural theorist, an African researcher from Houston, Texas, whose research focus is the cultural, linguistic, and philosophical links between the ancient Egyptian civilizations and modern Bantu cultures of Central and South Africa. He has a BA in computer information systems from the University of Houston with a double minor in African American and African studies. All right. He's currently continuing his education in computer science with a concentration in artificial intelligence. He's also the founder of the Medu Ndele Institute for the Advancement of Science and Culture. He is an author of such like loads of works. I'm telling you this right now. That's what I'm calling him. He's one of the greatest scribes of our generation. Okay. He's the author of Where is the Love? How Language Can Reorient Us Back to Love's Purpose. The Nesubiti book as well, which is the king in ancient Egyptian, a lesson in parenting and leadership. We can go on. We can talk about the loads of articles the brother has actually written. Just all you need to do is go there, go on to asarimhotep.com, and you'll see all the works that he's done. He's submitted, works and papers to the National Council for Black Studies, National Association of Black Psychologists, the NBUF National Conference. The brother, the Ma'afa featured speaker as well. The brother has got so much accolades. Okay, I could spend literally the next hour going through all of these accolades. I know he's going to be like, no. But in reality, okay, you already know Asar Imhotep is the man. Woo! Peace, family. Let me get my brother on right now. Greetings, Asar.
Peace and blessings. Let me make sure. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay.
Perfect.
I apologize beforehand if y'all hearing some background noise in the audience, but it's just my loud computer. But I appreciate you, Brother Kalam. It's been a while since I've graced your platform. So for those who don't know, we go back a minute for a number of serious discussions in the past. So this continues that tradition, linking the United States with the UK right now, from Philly to UK, and so I'm just honored to be here and to continue the dialogue that is important for a lot of African people and Black people around the world.
100%. And real quickly, family, if some of you guys have missed out on the old school, I'm saying old school Titans TV over 4 years ago, okay? Like Titans TV over 4 years ago was going in. As you can see here, we've got the good brother Asar Imhotep dropping, powerful information. Asar Imhotep, Bible clarity through African languages, Talk of the Titans. You could also catch out the show as well, with his then new book, okay? And also, touching on some discussions such as the Ra is Allah, discussion with Wesley Muhammad as well. Check out this one, Imhotep versus Muhammad, Power of Love and African Sovereignty. And of course, we've had him on various different shows, the Amun Squad, part of the Amun Squad Matrix. We've had him coming through, gracing us as well on that one, and other shows with Amun Squad, talking about evolution, to going through pseudo information as well. So real powerful, brother. Please go and check out the rest of the stuff that we've done over here on our channel, as well as Asar and Hotep's own channel on YouTube as well, where he's hosted a lot of great scholars of the African continent, going through linguistics. I just wanted to get the show with you and one of our savers, Bilolo, as well. Uncle Bilolo, where are we? I'm missing out. There's so much great stuff on here that we will literally have to scour through to find everything the brother's produced. He's literally a powerhouse in the community. He's leading the way. He's literally leading the way. So yeah, let's get Brother Asar Imhotep to just jump on and just brief the audience on the discussion itself. The debate that's been going on in the community, as well as stemming back to the 70s, if my memory serves me correct. Let me reintroduce Asar Imhotep.
Peace, yes. So the dialogue that we're continuing today has to deal with the meaning of the place name Kemet, and a controversy arose as a result of the Cairo the Cairo Symposium of 1974. And so this was a famous intellectual confrontation that the late Sheikh Anta Diop and the living elder Theophilo Benga, along with a number of scholars from across the world, mainly from Europe, Egypt and the Middle East, came together to discuss various matters regarding ancient Egyptian civilization. And so the central idea behind the conference was to discuss the merits of the quote unquote sub-Saharan African origins and or relationship to ancient Egypt. And so there were many things discussed that day, but one of the major things that was discussed was the meaning of the place name Kemet. And this was essentially the hypothesis of Sheikh Anta Diop. And he presented a thesis that was counter the interpretation of mainstream Egyptology. And so since the time of Champollion, Alan Gardner, Williams Flinders Petrie, and and that ilk, the argument has been that the name Kemet derived from a root in the language Kim, which means black. And for the Egyptologists, it was interpreted as the Black Land. And they argued that the inspiration behind the name was in fact the color of the alluvial soil that was left and deposited on the banks of the Nile after the Nile had flooded. So that had been the running narrative since the beginning of Egyptology as an academic discipline. So in 1974 at this Cairo Symposium, Sheikh Anta Diop introduced another argument. He accepted the argument that Kemet derives from a root Kim, meaning black. However, he did not agree that the inspiration behind the place name was in fact related to the alluvial soil. that it in fact went to characterize the skin color of the native inhabitants of ancient Kemet. And so there's a little bit of debate there. And if you have UNESCO's book on, the Cairo Symposium, or I think it's called The Peopling of Ancient Egypt and the Decipherment of the Meroitic Script, it goes into the details of and the records of the conversations that were going on in the symposium. I so wish that they actually had videotape of the conversations, but it appears, I'm going to assume that it was recorded, at least maybe in audio, so they could, record the actual notes or the actual conversations accurately to put into print. But that audio and or video has not been released. So our only information regarding the details of what went inside, what the conversations that were going on inside those four walls, is in that text. So we have to go by what that text says. So although he presented that argument at the symposium, he did not, however, publish it until until 1977. And so his parent genetic book on the relationship between the genetic relationship between ancient Egypt and modern Black African languages, where this was his kind of magnum opus, where he compared the Wolof language and all of its paradigms to the ancient Egyptian language. So this was a linguistic work. And chapter 5 of that work is where he made his argument for the Kemet meaning actually Black people and not the Black land. So a little bit of buzz and argument came about, but not much really. Not until around the publishing. I'm trying to see if I have the book around me, which I had earlier, but I have somehow put somewhere else in the universe. Oh, it's in my bookshelf. Hold on. This text here, by someone out of the UK, in the British Isles, that area, Dr. Martin Bernal, in his Black Athena thesis, The Afro-Asiatic Roots of Classical Civilization. And so this caused a lot of controversy in the world of academia. And it caused so much controversy that conferences and meetings were held to try to deal with this book in Europe and in the United States. They were so upset with his thesis that people were trying to find ways to not have this text taught in college universities. And so, of course, the African world community got a hold of this. And the reason why they had such a disdain for this text is, one, it argued effectively that the modern researchers in the classics, the Greek classics, were in fact racist. And because of their racism, they tried to suppress the Blackness in the relationship between Egypt and Greece and Phoenicia and the Levant in Greece. So his entire thesis is that these two population centers, who both spoke a quote-unquote Afro-Asiatic language, had a tremendous impact on the development of Greek language and ideas. And so prior to this text, and not even really prior to this text, because African scholars have been saying that for a while, from the time of Dubois to Dr. George G. and James, to, of course, Shekhar Diop and Theophilo Benga. But prior to this period of racism or whatnot, the ancient folks unanimously admitted that the Africans, the ancient Egyptians in particular, were Black African people and related to the people south of them, thus the quote-unquote sub-Saharan African people. And so there's not one contradiction coming from the Greek documents. And it is because of that, or those main points, that there was such vitriol for this text. And so I'm bringing this up for a reason, because as I mentioned earlier, there was such a big controversy as a result of this text that it sparked a lot of conversation in academic circles. Now, I began my university career in the year 1998. And when I came on campus, of course, wanting to know more about Black history and African history and things of this nature, we come across a lot of books and recommendations for books and classes that you can take and all this other good stuff. And so at that time, it was coming around the tail end of this academic debate that was going on in the mid-90s concerning the work of Black Athena. But it wasn't just Black Athena. It was also the merits of Afrocentricity as a particular method and paradigm that was developed also, a little bit earlier than the publishing of this book. Of course, the architect being Molefe Kete Asante. And so all of this is culminating in university campuses because these Black students, and remember, this is the early days of hip hop. So, the 5% movement, the Afrocentric movement had inspired children and young college students to get back into their African heritage and to research their history. So as a result, they're coming across these texts by Shekhar Diop, Asa Hilliard, and others, and Black psychology, Wade Nobles, and others. And this whole Afrocentric movement was going on. And so this book is published in the middle of that movement. So it's hip hop culture and it's Afrocentric in its beginnings, or at least in this time period, coming from the late 80s going into the early 90s. And then, Afrocentricity hitting college campuses, there's college campus tours. And now Black Athena comes in and just throws a monkey wrench into a whole issue here. And so there was a university, I forgot what university it was, but they created a listserv. So before social media, there was the listserv. That means there's a database full of emails, and if you email the main email, everybody in the database that is subscribed to this listserv gets the email. And so when I came upon this email, this was probably like my first going into the second year of college, and I'm seeing these debates, and these are people from around the world, on the continent of Africa, in Europe, and of course in the United States, and even some folks all the way in Australia. So when I say that this was a global debate, it was a global debate. So in these back and forth emails of these scholars debating the merits of Black Athena, Afrocentricity, the Blackness of the ancient Egyptians, part of the argument that the African-centered scholars were making was that the word Kemet, that the Egyptians were Black, but not only that, the name itself, Kemet, which they called, which was one of the names that they called the territory, didn't refer to black land as Egyptologists argued, but they invoked the argument from Diop in his 1977 work. And so by then, also, because a lot of people didn't, really know about Diop, outside of academic circles. So, but by that time, this work was published, which is Ivan van Sertima, which is actually a journal, the Journal of Classical African Civilization. But this particular journal, which is just a book in general, was great African thinkers, Sheikh Anta Diop. So the editor for that journal was the late Dr. Ivan van Sertima. And so you can catch an English version of his argument, his essential argument, in this text. So people are coming across this text and, they're making their arguments based off of Diop. So they're going back and forth, and this is going on for a number of years. So that, again, there's multiple different arguments going on in terms of the validity of Herodotus and things of that nature. So after a while, after the debate was really getting old, the university closed the listserv, and so everybody was kind of left to their own devices. And there was a scholar, a Southeast Asian scholar by the name of Dr. Paul Malasana, and he took it upon himself. So this is how old this is. I don't know how many of y'all remember GeoCities and that web development platform. So the first days of kind of social media was really kind of formulating then. So if you had a GeoCity site, you was doing big things back in the late 90s and early 2000s. So as a result, of that listserv closing, he was a part of that listserv and part of those debates. So he saved some of the conversations, and then he put it on different links on the GeoCity site. And then he started his own listserv, which was a listserv called Taseti. And it was hosted on Yahoo. So this is when the Yahoo groups first emerged. And so as a result of putting up this page and putting up this listserv, I became a moderator later on, some years down the line, of that listserv. So a number of scholars subscribed to the listserv and began continuing those debates. And so, again, because we're arguing about the blackness of the ancient Egyptians, Diop's name comes up because he's the source of the argument that the word Kemet means black people and not black land, which the mainstream European Egyptologists were arguing. So I'm a part of this listserv, and I enter into these debates. So you have people like Clyde Winters in this debate, Professor Manu Ampim, a few Egyptologists like, what's her name? Something Griffiths Greenberg, Yakro. There's a lot of big names that were in there. UK's own, Robin Walker was a part of that group. It was just a whole bunch of of individuals who saying seasoned historians and professionals getting involved in dealing with these debates. So people like Dr. Raymond Davies and Bonachi Montgomery, and so people who are reading and writing Meta-Netra. So it got to the point, as far as the Meta-Netra argument, about the argument about Kemet was so strong. Even like this is like 2000. This is between 2000 and 2005, that this listserv was really hot and dominant. And so as we are engaged in these debates with these various professors on both sides of the fence, you know, it came to a point where it's like, well, the only way to answer this is to go into the primary text. So we had a long period of just finding text and going through it with a fine-tooth comb to see the context of the word Kemet in the primary text. So we're pulling up the primary text. We're learning. This is when I started really getting into meta nature and having to, you know, prove points based on the primary text. And so I'm pulling this up to say that this issue had been a preoccupation for going on 21 years now. So 1998 to 2018 is 20 years. It's going on 2019. This is 21 years essentially that I've been involved and witnessing and engaging on this discussion on the meaning of the place name Kemet. And so I had transferred from the University of Texas State University to the University of Houston in Houston, Texas. And in 2002, one of my professors, I sat in his classes. So I've already done with my minor in terms of African studies and African American studies, but I would always find myself back in the African American studies program office and just sitting in people's classes, you know, continuing my education when I could, you know, when I was off over there in the technology building, you know, for my main higher up classes in computer information systems. So one day, this Professor James Small, excuse me, not Professor James Small, Professor Dr. James Conyers, he says, we're sitting here arguing over the meaning of Kemet. And when I proposed my argument, which was that Kemet did not mean black people, that I think the DIOP is wrong on this, he said that, you know, your arguments are sound, but this is what I want you to do. I want you to organize your thoughts, and I need you to write a paper, you know, write an abstract, and I need you to present this argument to a symposium that is happening here at the University of Houston in a couple of months. And so this was in the fall of 2002. So my first paper on the meaning of Kemet was in the fall of 2002. And I was to present it to a room full of PhDs, and with a great majority of them all Egyptian and historical scholars. And so one of those scholars who was in the room in 2002 was Dr. Malefe Asante and Malana Karanga, and, or I should say a few of those scholars, and Dr. Mario Beatty. Dr. Mario.
No pressure, no pressure, man. No pressure.
No pressure. Oh, no pressure. None at all. So keep in mind, everybody there had a PhD. I'm still an undergrad. So I'm being thrown to the wolves. But it was a good training. I loved it and couldn't wait for it. So also in that mix was Dr. Mario Beatty, one of Dr. Theophilo Benga's, you know, top students here in the United States, meta nature scholars. And at the time, I think he was at Brown University. And, you know, after conversing with a lot of people, they heard my argument, and it's like, you got something here. You just need to refine it more, and you need more sources. And so there's some people that you need to talk to, and they was also giving me book recommendations. So I'm taking down the book recommendations. I'm taking down the numbers of people that they want me to contact. And one of those people that I had to contact was Dr. Theophilo Benga. And matter of fact, do I still have it? I'm sorry. Um, I just had it over there. I just pulled it out earlier. I still have the number. And from the original writing it down, when Dr. Mario Beatty gave me Dr. Theophilo Binga's number to call him to discuss this matter. So I got the number from Dr. Mario Beatty, called Theophilo Binga a few days later. And so at this time, Dr. Theophilo Binga is teaching at San Francisco State University, which is all the way on the west coast of the United States for people who are unfamiliar, in California. And so me and him have a dialogue about it. And, you know, he is one of the major reasons why I got into linguistics. And from that conversation, you know, when I told him, you know, that I was a student at the University of Houston and that I'm in school for computer information systems, and the first thing he told me is that that's interesting. You know, you should look into doing linguistics. I think you'll be good at it given your computer science background. So, you know, and it was obvious the more and more I delved into this study that it was not an option at that point anymore. And so I took his advice and started, you know, learning about linguistics, some formal classes, mainly apprenticeships under different scholars, and then just studying on my own. And so, you know, I've gone through a lot of different positions, you know, regarding, you know, but since the beginning, I was never convinced that the Black people was the answer in terms of the meaning of Kemet. But I got to a point around 2010, 2009, 2010, where I had to start over from scratch. And when I started over from scratch and I started applying the scientific method to the question, then the answer, the true answer, in my belief, revealed itself. And so I had to abandon my prior assumptions and arguments regarding the meaning of Kemet. And this is when I argued that both the Afrocentric school was incorrect, as well as the Eurocentric school was incorrect. That the word itself had nothing to do with Blackness at all, in that it was a word that had to deal with the land. So the Europeans were closer to the truth. However, it had nothing to do with color. It only had to deal with the type of land, the fertile land, as a result of the presence of water and foliage, plants. And so I began to write a number of articles, and of course was engaged in more debates online and various different forums and things, putting this message out there. And so, you know, further studies, I found other African scholars who independently came to the same conclusion. And so all of this, even though I've written prior articles, all of this has culminated now after 20 years of investigation into this matter, into an upcoming chapter in a new book that I'm releasing in 2019, Illusion Volume 2. And so I just wanted to start off with that background so you can kind of get a context for how I entered this particular conversation. And so to let individuals know that this is not something that I just picked up yesterday and, you know, decided I'm going to have a random debate, you know, saying on the meaning of Kemet. This was, I came into this just going into college and being immersed in Black studies. And so, you know, I'm part of that school. I'm part of the Ethiopian school. And this is, you know, a major point of contention, you know, because there's a lot of folks who are very emotional behind this word. And that is because they've turned the term into a religious term. And so now we've adopted the Europeans' conceptualization of race, and now we've utilized that term to as a standing ground, from which to argue that the ancient Egyptians were quote unquote black African people. And so, I'll end there so you can, if you have a question or a comment, to interject.
Wow. I've got to say, we're not worthy. We're not worthy to ask any questions, okay? Customary for us to have breaks throughout the show, get some questions in. But really, 21 years in the research field with such great scholars, okay? And we want to put our input in. But we just want you to present that good information, bring us up to speed. Also, let's just shout out to for actually stepping up. Okay, Neb is one of our young scholars over in the US who step up to the plate and on this Saber Reggie as well. But I know he's been onto this platform by himself, presenting his own research on this. So shout out to you, Neb, up against one of the titans in the field, and hopefully it's a still sharpened, still occasion sharpening the sword. All right, they still sharpening the sword. And right about now, Asar, Imhotep, is that sword. So let's get it, man. Let's get into the conversation. Afro Man Raf, I see you, baby. I know you've been waiting for to come onto the platform. I know you've been waiting for Uncle Keck. All right, we're gonna bring it back to the old school Bible. We get a lot of our intellects from the Americas to come over, visit the channel, and produce great content again, giving us lectures and interactive presentations as well. So family, if you're here with us and you're enjoying Times TV, as I know you always do, please hit the button right now. Okay, hit the like button like crazy. Let everybody know that we're live right now on Times TV. Jump on Facebook if you can. Share the link over Facebook. I know I've done already. Twitters, share it, everywhere possible. Google Plus, if there is still the groups there, please share it in as much groups as possible. Get everybody to flood it in. All right, see those people who are into Afrocentric information, as well as those people who absolutely love and adore Kemet and linguistic. It's powerful. We're going into the elders right about now. We're going straight into what the ancestors had to say. Shouts out to everybody who's been supporting the likes, hitting us up, or you're interacting with us, and of course those of you guys who've been dropping the super chats and donating to Times TV. I see my brother Dexter. I believe it's my Dexter brother from Speaker's Corner. She's been waiting for shows like this. A lot of brothers and sisters have been waiting for these types of shows. Shout out to you. Shout out to Ultra Funky as well, who's hit us up with the super chats. Says big up, brother Kalam, all damn day long. We've got other people as well. Charlie Moonface, bigging it up. Raw Beats, bigging up the show. Monica Lamb, I know you know the queen over in America, bigging it up as well. As we're waiting for this show. So without much more further ado, let's get our scribe, our scribe to come in and drop this information for us. Sorry, Hotep might just be loading up the presentation at the moment, so I'm just gonna kill some time on it in. Okay.
I'm good.
And if I could, just focus everybody's attention over here. All right. So if you guys would like to get updated and familiar with the conversation, I believe this is one of the latest. I remember, we even had a conversation on this as well. But this here was, if it is the same one I'm thinking about, this happened years ago. Look at that. This is how long we've been having this conversation. And I remember when you dropped this, it was crazy. Okay, 50 odd, 42 odd pages. Okay, of just straight information. And just imagine this, family, right? 40 on just breaking down. You see this little symbol here? Okay, this is a symbol called Naut. But in the category, the language itself or grammar itself, this right here is the determinative. All right, it's a determinative, meaning it gives phonemes or the preceding letters or the preceding hieroglyphs. Okay, so my brother spent 42 long pages, okay, simply breaking down what a determinative is, giving precise information on this, quoting straight from the hieroglyphs themselves, going into grammar books, all sorts. Okay, we're just breaking down one thing in the language. 42 pages the good brother spent on that, and also spent on Kemet as well as the 049 determinative. Okay, 42 pages. So just imagine, okay, how much longer the brother could spend, okay, on breaking down this symbol here, Gardner code. I believe it's I6, the KM, okay, the biliteral, which is the KM. Just imagine how much breaking that down. All right, that's how in depth. Okay, that's how in depth the language can be. So you're literally in the presence of a master scribe. That's sat at the feet that we all admire and look up to. All right, let me just see, is Asar Imhotep ready?
Yes, yes, I'm ready. If you can hear me.
No, they're loving you right now. We got Jay Boogie says big up Kalam with the exclusive. All right, right about now they're dropping a lot of super chats for you for coming on so far. All right, and I love this. This is the concept of Ma'at in operation. Okay, we're putting on this great information, and you guys can see the value and the wealth of the titan that's actually here today. And I will also guys attention, right, to Asar Imhotep's website. Okay, I'm pretty sure you can actually go there and make your purchases as well. Okay, in terms of all right, as well as checking out his videos on there, as well as I believe it's in the community shop where you can actually go and make the purchases, support the brother again, because we do this and we're self-funded. They have grand institutes behind them that's actually backing them monetarily for them to just spend a year out of their life to write or to author these types of works here. But our brother is doing it independently, to take time away from his family, away from his business, away from his work, to come and produce this information for you. So if you can, right, remember Ma'at, reciprocity, you can, all right, because the brother has produced great work, right, on his academia as well. His work for free, okay, and he's got tons of work on here for absolutely free. You could download it. You can learn a lot by just simply me. I spend most of my time in the footnotes, okay? Most of my time I spend in Asar Imhotep's footnotes. This is where, all right, the footnotes, let me show you where else I spend most of my time, all right? This is Asar Imhotep don't know this, but this is where I spend most of my time, all right? And I could sound as half as smart as Asar Imhotep. I spend it in the footnotes, and I also spend it in the bibliography, okay? I also spend it in the bibliography, just going through all of this, finding books like Martin Brunel's Black Athenia, volume 3, just going through the foot budge. All right, this is it here. This is what we call academia. So when you see us debating at Speaker's Corner, say that we've been well groomed because we're sitting at the foot of absolute giants. Okay? All right, family. I've done too much talking. I've done too much talking. Let me get the king, let me get the guardian to just, deliver this medicine for the family.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
No doubt.
Yeah, the article that you just cited is actually simply a response to a debate I was engaged in on the website egyptsearch.com. And so every few years, I've been on that website for a while too. And every few years, maybe every year and a half, somebody brings up the argument about the meaning of Kemet. And so I just got tired of rehashing the same arguments over again on the forum. So I decided to respond back in that article form. So that's what you're seeing. And there was a lot I left out. So that 42 pages is, like right now I'm looking at 60 pages for this chapter on the meaning of Kemet. And so a lot of that stuff isn't in there. It's a whole bunch of other stuff, some new stuff, as well as the some of the other stuff that was in that article as well. And so and the reason why I left out some things in there, because I was writing a book on the meaning of Kemet, and I decided to abandon the book, given some other directions that, because of course science is self-correcting, I couldn't substantiate going into this other direction. And so it was just a lot simpler to make it a chapter in the upcoming book. And so that's what I did instead. So some of the other work that was going to be in that book on the meaning of Kemet was called Ogun and the Meaning of Kemet, and ended up being part of my book Nesubiti, Kingship, Leadership, Paronymy and Leadership in Ancient Egypt. And so, we could talk about that in another time. So I'm just going to get into, my first few slides. So let me share my screen, the entire screen. Yes. So, hopefully they can see everything well on the screen. And so, I actually did this as a result. I should say that, every now and then I somebody wants to challenge me on the information on the meaning of Kemet, and every now and then I'll entertain it. And so the last entertainment was with our good brother Netanel. And so he, of course, disagreed with my outcome. And so since 2014, he's been making videos. He's been having conversations, still trying to convince the world that, his argument is sound. And so it has not stopped even to this day. So, I came here on this show to continue this dialogue because him and Brother Reggie, came on your show and they presented some information. And I love our good brother, both of them, matter of fact, but there's some limitation in their training, which permeates and expresses itself in their scholarship. And there were certain arguments made that were irrelevant to the argument itself, and others were just made up totally. And so I wanted to address some of them. To address all of them would take an entire number of hours, and I don't feel like going through all of that. I've already had the discussion with them, on my platform, and or BB Toomey's platform and Amara Squad platform. So at this point it's just being redundant. But I wanted to give some insight, to your audience into the nature of this debate and just to address a few things from uh, Reggie's and Neb's presentation on your show. And so this is I offer a class online on linguistics. And one of the things that I kept finding with people in these arguments is that they don't have a strong background in linguistics. And so instead of just complaining about it, I decided to offer an introductory course and to help the layperson get abreast with linguistic concepts so that ultimately they can follow a lot of the linguistic arguments. And then it's important that you have some kind of linguistic training, some kind of linguistic background, because all of the African scholars on the continent have this in terms of linguistics as part of their academic toolkit. Because when you're trying to understand a people, you have to understand their language. You know, you can't get into their psyche and their culture without permeating their language. And so you have to know the fundamental things about linguistics to be able to keep up with arguments made by Diop, Obinga, Christopher Eric, you know, Abubakar Masalam, you know, Omen Digi and others, you know, from the continent of the United States, James P. Allen, you know, Gardner and all these. You just have to have, there's just no way around it. And so what I was finding is that more and more people are trying to enter this argument and wasn't willing to take the time to study linguistics from the beginning, the basics. And so this is an issue with Neb. And so he wants to jump straight into historical comparative linguistics, but he does not have the basics, the foundation in linguistics to even get there. You have to take several courses before you can even get to historical comparative linguistics. So we're talking about an introduction to linguistics, then you have to take sociolinguistics, then you have to take phonology, then you have to take semantics, and then maybe you can, you know, start with your historical comparative linguistic courses. And so he wants to jump straight into quantum mechanics, and he hasn't taken algebra yet. And it is causing him to miss certain key elements in the argument, to the point that he doesn't even really understand what the argument is. And so our good brother Reggie, also not having at least net or neb, you know, tries to understand from a linguistic standpoint the arguments. But our good brother Reggie has entirely no background whatsoever. So he's one of those who tries to skip it. And you can't skip it because we're talking about the meaning of the word Kemet, which automatically makes it a linguistic argument, which means you need to have the basics in linguistics, especially semantics, and of course, historical comparative linguistics. And so this is one of the reasons why I offered this course. So you can go to my website and, you know, see that, you know, for those who want to participate. So, you know, again, you know, their lack of training in a certain area kind of leads to sloppy scholarship. And, you know, I'm not taking jabs at them as people. I'm taking jabs at I'm pointing out, in fact, just the lack of method, a strong method in the course of this dialogue. So, for example, our good brother Ned, this is a screenshot of one of his slides that he used in your presentation. And so when you're doing scholarship, you have to cite, if you're going to discuss something that somebody wrote, you're going to have to cite them directly, because you don't want to be in a situation where you're accused of misquoting them and taking them out of context or just making up an argument. But this is in fact the case here with our good brother Ned or Neb. You know, it's all of the above. And you know, you notice that he makes this argument. He puts my name here. He says Asar states that researchers do not verify the term in genetically related languages. And so he cites the article that you pulled up, which is a lesson in determinatives. So this is my name, and this is what he's saying. And then he goes on to argue from this alleged argument. He says, actually, not only we verify in genetic related African languages, but we show that across 5 to 14 African languages, we can verify the adjective noun black people, the adjective black, the adjective noun black land, and the adjective verb be black, all demonstrating cognates by established sound laws. And so it's just hard to follow because, again, you have to cite people correctly. And so from this is a screenshot of my article that you pulled up. And so I had you do 3 tasks, or I didn't have you do, as if I could make you, Brother Kalam. I requested that you do 3 things prior to this conversation. Am I right in that?
Yep, you're right. 100.
Okay. And so one of them was to examine, he's already familiar with the text, because again, we've had this discussion before, you know, in terms of the meaning of the hieroglyph, the I-6 hieroglyph. You know, we've had some serious discussions on this meaning of Kemet going back a number of years. And so he's familiar, but I wanted him to verify some things, you know, in the text first. But this isn't one of the things I want to verify. I just wanted to give you a heads up because I'll be calling upon you to see if, you know, or you were able to validate and verify what I had asked. And so this is what I actually said in my document. This is the very first page. This we're not going into page 2 yet. This is the very first. This is page 1. It has the title on the page, and it has my name and the date that it was published, all that good stuff. So this is page 1. So, and I'll read it. The following paper is a response article to a discussion that is ongoing in the popular EgyptSearch.com website, particularly in the Egyptology forum. The particular thread title is Black Land or Black People. Since the 1970s, there has been an ongoing debate as to whether the meaning of the ancient Egyptian name for their country, Kemet, means black land or black people. The controversy stems from varying interpretations of the 049 determinative. You alluded to that earlier in the intro, with the pronunciation value of Nuit, city or town as the definition. Some argue that the word Kemet refers to the color of the soil, mainly from Eurocentric scholars, and others, mainly in the Afrocentric community, assert it pertains to the people as it regards the phenotype, therefore black-skinned people. In this essay, I take the position that both camps are incorrect in their assessments. This is due to a number of factors. 1, not paying attention to the determinatives. 2, exclusively applying the meaning black to the KM root while totally ignoring the determinatives, which clarify its meaning. 3, not verifying the term in related African languages. And 4, not verifying one's interpretation by contextual use in primary Egyptian documents. It is my contention that the word Kemet means farm, country, nation, or simply livable land, and that the meaning black has nothing to do with this particular term. So I lay out everything from the beginning. And so it is this part right here that they're not verifying the terms, the term in related African language. I didn't say they didn't compare. just that they didn't verify. And I go into, especially in terms of the historical comparative method. And so people are doing mass comparison and think that they're doing the comparative method. And so if we have some time, I'll go over the comparative method, with your audience. But I just wanted to point this out because you always have to cite someone directly. Give the page number and don't put words into their mouth. And so the little nuances, make a big difference. And so even in his argument, he lumps 1 and 2 together, and they're related but not together. So I'm saying here in part 1 that researchers, and this has nothing to do with Ned or Neb or anybody, because this was written before Ned and Neb got into this argument. So I'm just saying researchers in general are not paying attention to the determinatives. And so we look at the determinatives for the word Kemet, and they're interpreted it totally different than what the determinatives are saying. And then on top of that, they're exclusively applying the meaning black to the word Kim while totally ignoring the determinatives, which clarifies meaning. So these are 2 different issues. And so on the one hand, we're dealing with the determinatives that are accompanying Kemet, and then the other issue of exclusively applying the word black to Kim while not trying to use any type of scientific method to distinguish between the other variants of Kim, which have nothing to do with blackness at all. And so this is the issue that I brought up. So I hope y'all are following all along. And so it has always been about the toponyms. So as I stated at the beginning here, this particular thread is Black Land of Black People. Since the 1970s, there has been an ongoing debate as to whether the meaning, you see I have this word italicized, meaning, that means the semantics of the ancient Egyptian name for their country, dealing with toponyms, place names. And I say this all throughout the text. So I asked you, Brother Kalam, if you could visit my article that you had pulled up. And I said, once downloaded, can you go to page 11 and verify that I discussed the word Kemet as it regards a place name? Evidence should start right under the heading, the correct meaning of Kemet. Can you also verify that on the same page that I note that the word Kemet can be written with no determinatives at all? Were you able to verify that, Brother Kalam?
Yep.
Okay, so this I have not taken this article has been up for 4 years. And so I have to bring this up because in your discussion, and even in the previous discussion on the Dagger Squad show, for which Brother Reggie and Brother Ned or Neb came on, excuse me, they accused me of introducing the concept of toponyms only in their debate when I was having a discussion between them. So, and I forgot to mention this earlier, that Brother Reggie felt that Ned or Neb obviously didn't do a good job in presenting his information. So he had to come and defend Ned or Neb because Ned or Neb failed to prove his point. And so he decided to take it upon himself. Well, since Ned or Neb can't do it, then I'm going to jump in. And so we had a discussion. He presented on the Amara Squad for 2.5 hours. And then I presented after him, rebuttals to some of his arguments. You can find that on the Amara Squad YouTube channel, that discussion. So in that, and after that, he kept saying just randomly that, we were making it about toponyms, and that we're trying to move the goalposts and introduce this into the discussion all late. And so this is from page 11 that I had Brother Kalam to verify existed, because I wanted Kalam to verify it so they can't say that I changed it and I made it up on a Kalam show. So this is the reason why I had him verify. And so, you know, my view count is the same. There's nothing different. This is exactly what's in my article. So I say under the heading, the correct meaning of Kemet, finding the meaning of to the place name Kemet can only be ascertained, one, by examining the determinatives assigned to the variations of the place name, by examining the earliest usages of the term in the Egyptian records in order to establish its historical application within the primary documentation, and by confirming its meaning with cognates in related African languages. In other words, we should find cognate terms that support the proposed meaning for Kemet based on its determinatives. I have been consistent about this. And so here it is on page 11. And so beforehand, and we know this from talking with our good brother Reggie, he did not even know what a toponym was. And so because he didn't know what a toponym was, he couldn't recognize its synonym in the article. All a toponym means is place name. Toponym comes from the Greek. And so in English, you just say place name. In Latin, you would say nomen loci. In the Greek, you would say toponymus, or place name, or toponym. So it's always, for me, been about the place name. Because if you don't understand this word Kemet as a toponym, a place name, you'll never be able to get to the heart of the problem. Because the ancient Egyptians had grammar rules for place names. This is going to be very important. So can you verify, because this was the second verification. I said, please visit the following link to the first debate with Ned or Nev. I would like you to verify two things at two different timestamps. At 1414, can you verify that I have written the word place name on this slide? Now, can you verify as well, starting around 1 hour and 48 minutes and 30 seconds, a slide on toponymy, and that both the words place name and toponymy are both on this slide as synonyms? So were you able to also verify that? Brother Kalam.
1 hour and 48 minutes, did you say?
Yeah, the two slides that I asked you to verify. Were you able to verify those slides?
So 1 minute, 48 seconds, 1 minute, 48, 30 seconds. We're going to have every fight at the same time. Ready? And let's do it.
I can't see the screen when you
so
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay.
I got the full screen, so I can't see you. So just let me know when you want to come back.
Okay. So right here, family, as you can see, toponyms fulfill the task of identifying localities, thereby distinguishing them from one another. More so, they serve as cartographic labels that can be used for orientation, navigation, recreation, and reference points. A place name imparts a certain character on a place. Thus, place names can also provide a glimpse of the lifestyle led by the people. For instance, geographical names can suggest that a people were settlers rather than ferocious raiders. In other words, place names could be used to judge the way of life associated with the people or nomadic. One potent means by which they effectively encoded and communicated cartographic and geographic information was by the use of toponyms, names of places and other geographical features. Thus, in vintage African societies, place names were not just chosen arbitrarily, they were carefully chosen to convey specific and useful meanings to the people. All right, that's that one.
Yeah, I just needed you to verify that it existed, because I have it on the slide here. And so I just
Yep, you
wanted
did.
to
And
just to make sure that, I didn't make this up, because I'm making a point here that they came on the shows, there's two shows, and argued that that I did that in the rebuttal to Reggie, that I introduced the concept of toponyms and place names only after he presented, and this wasn't a part of my original discussion with Ned or Neb. And so what I wanted to show that it was not only a part of the discussion in my 2014 work, and really any subsequent work, I mean, any previous work to that up to this time, but it also was a part of the discussion with Ned or Neb. And so, when you're going on live, a live stream, and you're making arguments and you're accusing people of certain arguments, or moving the chessboard and stuff to this nature, you have to be accurate in what you're saying. And so, like on my screen right now, this is the first slide from the slide, the slide presentation that I had with Ned or Ned on the BB2 platform, which we actually streamed to YouTube. And so on here, it says the issues and hypotheses that I have. I said it's been an ongoing debate since at least the 60s on the meaning of the place name Kemet. Primarily two hypotheses. Kemet means black land, Kemet means black people. Hypothesis 2. Both claims assume that the root of Kemet is the word Kim, black, in Egyptian. And so here's clear as day, again, this word place name. And so you saw in the source that I gave you, that you just visited, that the word place name and toponym are used interchangeably because they're the same words, just from two different languages. And so this slide that I have here, I didn't ask you to verify, but it also was in the slide. So I even defined for everyone what a toponym was. It's the name of a place. Any name derived from a place name. From Greek topos, place, and onym, name. And then toponymy, the study of place names. And so this was defined. And then I also had the following slide, which showed the determinatives or the actual classifiers for toponyms. So these are classifiers for toponyms. And this is important because the word Kemet is written with the 049 glyph, as you mentioned earlier, the N23 glyph, as well as the N36 glyph. And so this was the slide that I just had you show. So I wanted you to verify it prior to make sure that they can't argue that, I just slipped this in the slide presentation for you. And so I wanted to show this is from the African Journal of History and Culture. I put this in the slide because it's always been about place names and about toponymy. And so this is the second part. It says indigenous African place names have an enormous treasure of geographical information and knowledge inherent in them. In a typical traditional African society, place names are used to subsequently describe geographical phenomena. Roden's account of the use of place names to identify various geographical conditions or features in Uganda typifies what is obtainable in a classic African society. As observed by Roden, a very prominent group of Ugandan place names are those which describe or imply the physical characteristics of an area. Relief, climate, soils, hydrology, flora, and fauna all feature in names throughout the country. Often the description is in terms of the suitability of an area for human activity, the fertility of the soil, the presence of water, reliability of rainfall, suitability for a particular crop, a river, a swamp which endangers life, or the occurrence of a tree or grass species of value for house building, tool making, and handicrafts, and the presence of clay for pottery are all frequent examples. Other names suggest the type of land use, describing the prominent crop, the presence of grazing land, and so on. So this journal article from 2016 is informing you the typical way in which Africans, use or name places after the features of the area. And so not, just colors and stuff. They're more concerned about, is this place suitable for life or is it not? What identifying plant is there? What type of soil is there? Is it good? Does it have a river? Does it have a lake? And so all of the place names, for the vast majority of them, unless they're named after people, have to deal with these things. And so I bore that out in our discussion. And so that's all I wanted to address there. And so this one still surprised me that they would come on your show and present this information, because we debunked this already with Brother Reggie. And obviously, Brother Reggie did not update our good brother Ned or Neb on this term here. So our elder, the late Dr. Sheikh Antas Yoke, misinterpreted this hieroglyph here. And it's really not his fault. But Diop didn't do his due diligence. And this is why, you still have to argue that he misinterpreted it. But in the Waterbush Dictionary, where Diop was getting mainly his definitions from, there's an entry in there, KMT, and it is defined as the Egyptians. The problem with that is that that word is never used to describe the Egyptians. They always, when they wanted to talk about the people of Kemet, they would always literally say Remech Kemet. It's a direct genitive. And it's basically, it's literally the people of Kemet. And so there was part of my argument was that they ignore the chronology of the usage of the place name Kemet. So Brother Reggie and another brother by the name of Adrian Jones is the one who actually gave him this. But Brother Reggie wasn't thorough in his investigation. So he thought he had an aha, I got you moment, but it turned out to be a dud. And this is why. So one of the things that I brought out in the article in the 2014 is that the land of Kemet had several Kemets inside of Kemet. So, for example, a good example of that would be like in the state of New York. So we have New York State as the state. And then we also have New York City. Now, I haven't looked up what the word York means. Maybe because York comes from, the British Isle, that word, maybe you can, or someone, knows what that word means and where it comes from. But we know there's a York and Yorktown and whatnot in Britain. And so, of course, when the British moved over here and migrated to the United States, they said New York. This is the New York. So we took our place name from the old place and we renamed this settlement colony York. So it is the New York to distinguish it from it. So you have the whole state that is named New York, and then you have the city that is named New York. And so it's the same thing, except it was done in the reverse. And so, I need to look into that history, but the New York City may have originated first, and then when the state came, it became New York State. But there was a Kemet, which was a nome or an area in Athribis, and it was called Kemet. And also, colloquially called Kimwer, as well as a lake that was called Kimwer, not too far from it. And so this is important because, to our knowledge, the word Kemet was never applied to the entire land until the 11th dynasty, going into the Middle Kingdom. And so when Brother Reggie tried to use this slide and argument, he was trying to say that the word Kemet existed before the word before the 11th dynasty, which we have to be careful here, because we never argued that the word Kemet didn't exist prior to the 11th dynasty. What we argued was that the word Kemet was not applied to the entire nation and land until the 11th dynasty. So you got to be careful in understanding people's arguments. And so they made a total ghost argument that had nothing to do with whatever it is that we said. And so he thought he had a gotcha moment here, because in the Wörterbuch dictionary, the Ehrman and Grappa Wörterbuch dictionary, it has Egyptians as the definition. And so when you read Diop's 1977 work, when it says KMT, he says the Egyptians, the blacks. That's how he's interpreting it. But this is not the case. That is not how this word is used. And so, scholars have since corrected the Wörterbuch, the Ehrman and Grappa Wörterbuch. So I'm giving you a few examples here. So this is, die Sprache der Pharaonen, Rofes and Wörterbuch Egyptisch and Deutsch, by Rainer Honig. And he's a prominent Egyptologist, and everyone from the German school, all Egyptologists have this dictionary. And so the Ehrman and Grappa so far is the largest, but it's still incomplete. And so you have other dictionaries from the Germanic school, and French has a number of dictionaries, and of course there's the few English dictionaries that we have. So in this text here on page 883, that's where you can see this word Kemet and all this other, and the word Kim in the dictionaries. You see this entry over here where I have my mouse. I took it and blew it up for your audience. And so it says Kemet, plural. That's what the PL means here. And it's Lut os Athribis, the people of Athribis. And so this does not mean Kemet. This has nothing to do with the nation Kemet, only a small gnome in Kemet. And so this is from a text. This is a journal, Revue d'Egyptologie, the French Society of Egyptology. And so there's an article. This was in 1975. So this is the cover, saying of the physical journal. And Sonaron has an article on Pepe I, the tomb of Pepe I. So let me go back. This from here, where they're attempting to make their point here, is from the pyramid text. And so I should have said that. So the reason why they try to use this as a gotcha is because this is in the pyramid text before the 11th dynasty. So what they were trying to argue is that this proves that the word Kemet existed for the nation prior to the 11th dynasty. So they were trying to debunk a source that I have by Golet, who wrote an article in 1999 that was a part of a chapter of a book on the word Kemet. And so this is from the pyramid text, but mainly from the Pepe text. So going back to the journal article, we can go to this footnote here. So on page 146 of the article, here is the original citation in French, and then here is my translation into English. So for those who can translate this a little better, saying excuse my translation. And so it's footnote S. So for some reason, this article doesn't have numbers for the footnotes. It only has letters. And so it says, we have for a long time interpreted Kemet as Egyptians. So he's acknowledging that there was a time where Kemet was Egyptian. An interpretation in an essay by Otto was presented in Beitrag zur Geschichte, I can never pronounce that correctly, der Stiftkultur, in Egyptian by Faulkner. Oh, excuse me, pages 14 through 15. 14 through 15. Faulkner, in his ancient Egyptian pyramid text, page 288 and 327, assumed that it was the people of the Thribis. The presence of the bull in the palimpsest in our new text of Pepe the First confirms this hypothesis. Kimwer is mentioned as such in pyramid section 556C. And so you essentially have three sources here now. That one from Faulkner, one from Sonaron in this journal, and one from Hanig, that tells you that this KMT does not refer to the Egyptians, only the inhabitants of Athribis. And so this is a Nisbe form of the word Kemet. So this place was called Kemet. And so this I or Y here is the Nisbe form, and this is the plural after it. So it's saying Kemet as a place name, and then of, and then the plural for people. So the people of Kemet, or of Athribis, not Egypt as a whole. And so this is ironic because what's his name knew this already. Shekhar Diop, he just totally ignored it. And so this was apparent. Like if you read the UNESCO book on the peopling of ancient Egypt and the decipherment of the Meroitic script, the same author informs Diop about this, and Diop never investigated it. And so that was a mistake by Diop. So we'll continue. So this is another one of Netterneb's slides. He says, Asar Imhotep, this is allegedly, I say, not one example of the name Kemet nation uses a color determinative. And that's just been an argument I'm making, so I'll agree that that's what I said. So he points out here, according to James P. Allen grammar, Asar Imhotep is accurate. Why he needed to put my name in quotes, I have no idea. But determinatives of color do not have to be always present. This is a simple beginner's grammar rule, section 6.4, James P. Allen. Golet's paper also confirms that Kim glyph is frequently seen with no determinative. Another grammatical example that the term Kim do not always employ determinative. I question why this is even a point if he actually read and understood my article. So did I not also have you confirm that? That's what I had you confirm the first one. I said, can you also verify that on that same page that I note that the word Kemet can be written with no determinatives at all? Were you able to confirm that, Brother Kalam?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so here's just another example here from the same text. I say, for example, we have the variations Kim, black, and Kimu, to be in the dark. The first variant is also used to convey the word Kim, to be blind, as to be blind is to be in a continuous state of darkness, blackness. Another variant is given as Kim, to be black. These examples are taken from Viger's 2012, but one can look at Budge 787b for even more examples of this determinative for, words meaning black. We note then that the D3 glyph is used to convey color. In each of these variants, the word is followed by the D3 hair determinative. The word Kim, black, can be written without the determinative for hair, as can be seen in this variant, black. But this omission is still rooted in the variants above. In other words, we have the variant with D3 determinative as representative of the more fuller sense, and it gives us a point in which to cross-check if the scribe decided to omit a glyph, which is very common in Egyptian writing. The syntax and the context of the sentences allows for us to make the distinction. So where the hell is Netterneb getting this argument from? And he spent so much time on it as if he was schooling me on something. When in 2014, it's in my text that I had you verify. And this is what I mean by sloppy scholarship. They're in such a rush to make an argument that they look over these little details and it just permeates throughout their entire argument. That they just make up arguments and nobody is arguing. We know for a fact that the word Kim or any variant can be written without determinatives. I had to mention that in the text. But what the argument is that regardless, the omitted versions, you know that there's an omission because there is a variant with the determinative attached to the word. In other words, the ones without the determinatives are short forms of the word. There always exists a long form of the word. And so we can verify that that one word without the determinatives has that meaning, because we can verify it with the classifiers or the determinative in the long form, probably in another text. That's exactly what I say in this text. So Netanyahu just makes up a total argument out of the ether, out of the Akashic records, for which I have no understanding why. And so the challenge that I posed to any scholar was, well, if the word kemet derives from the root kim, one way to verify that that is the case is that we should at least find one example of the word kemet with the hair determinative or the other determinative that they use for color. But we never, at least to my knowledge to this date, I have yet to come across, as many years as I've been studying this, a version of the word kemet with the actual any color determinative, period. And so what we have here is a type of logical fallacy. It's called the moat and the Bailey. And this logical fallacy is a combination of what they call a bait and switch and equivocation, in which someone switches between a moat, an easy to defend and often common sense statement, such as culture shapes our experiences, and a Bailey, a hard to defend and more controversial statement, such as cultural knowledge is just as valid as scientific knowledge. In order to defend a viewpoint, someone will argue an easy to defend position, the moat, temporarily to ward off critics, while the less defensible position, Bailey, remains the desired belief, yet is never actually defended. So how does this pertain to Netanyahu's argument? So the Bailey argument is the question that I pose: can we find the word kemet with the hair determinative, or the other? I think it's the N33 determinative. It's a pellet, a granule of stone or rock. And if we're able to find the word kemet with either one of those two determinatives for color, it would support everyone's argument that the word that the word kemet, the place name kemet, has any kind of color association. So the moat here is that he refers to a grammar rule that states that, basically it's not even a grammar rule. This has nothing to do with grammar. This is a graphic convention in which a word, a noun or a verb or whatever, that has a terminating classifier can be written with or without the classifier, for which the context will actually make it clear if it is absent of the classifier. And so obviously I already knew that because it's already cited in my text. So he cites that instead of dealing with the Bailey, dealing with the actual problem. So this is where the logical fallacy comes in. Again, people just in a rush to make an argument that they never deal with the points. All they have to say is, no, we haven't found any variation of the word kemet with any color determinative. That's all you have to say. But instead, they're trying to bait and switch and have a totally different argument that is irrelevant to the statement in which was made, especially since I already acknowledged that convention in the paper, which they had 4 years to read and understand. And so, you know, they bring up this word for it's jahat or jahab, and the other one is habit. There's another word for black in the language that is what I just mentioned, jahab. It means to blacken or just black. And some dictionaries will say coal black, but that's, you know, kind of forcing a particular definition, but it's understandable given the variant of it. But I also gave you a more a more nuanced argument, a more nuanced challenge, I should say, not a more nuanced, a more difficult challenge. So I asked you, I said, okay, this one is going to require a little bit more work. Your job, Brother Kalam, because I pose this to everybody whoever has tried to argue with me on this word Kemet. Because this goes into the so-called feminine T rule, which we may get into. And it says, okay, this one is going to require a little more work. Your job here is to try to find in any Egyptian source or dictionary a word Kemet meaning black. Note how I am wording this. The example must have all three consonants, therefore KMT. So for those not familiar with the ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs, the Egyptians, to our knowledge, did not write out their vowels, at least in the Old and Middle Kingdom. The New Kingdom, they're trying to introduce vowels in a number of words. But at least in the Old and Middle Kingdom, where this argument is relevant, they did not have any vowels. So the consonant cluster or the consonant sequence, KMT, is what I'm looking for, not Kim. The T in Kemet must not be the result of concord or agreement with a preceding feminine noun suffixed by T. And I gave him an example. And so the importance of this exercise will be discussed in our talk. So my question to you, Brother Kalam, were you able to find in any dictionary or primary source the words KMT by itself meaning black?
Get it?
Huh?
And make sure, is everybody following along sweetly? Following along sweetly. Keep it interactive inside of the comment section, family. I saw you there.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I asked you a question.
Oh, did you ask me something? Sorry.
Yes, that's what I said. I gave, given the question, were you able to find the word Kemet itself, meaning black, by itself in any dictionary or primary source, without it being the result of concord?
No.
Okay.
I haven't done the.
We actually had a little bit more time. I'm sorry?
I haven't done the study for that one.
Yeah, so there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
Because the opposition, based on Diop's words, argued that a feminine T is suffixed to the root as a result of trying to make it a collective noun, right? And so then it's supposed to allegedly mean the blacks. And you would never find the word Kemet by itself meaning black, because there's no reason for the word Kemet to mean black by itself, because you already have Kim, black. You may have Kimi, had to deal with some other type of black in verb form, but not Kemet itself. See, if Kim was a feminine noun, it would always be suffixed by T. That's what would make it feminine. So a word doesn't go from masculine to feminine in these particular forms. And so this is where the key understanding of linguistics comes in. Now, one of the examples that I gave or I've given is this one right here. So this word here, tahab, Jahabu, is the gods with their hair dressed. This is a Budge version. And it's just a word meaning black. And so there's a phrase, Jahab Shin, or Jahabu Shinu. And so it has to do with black hair. And then there's a form Jahabet. The T now changes this word from black to a noun, the adjective black, and the verb form black. Notice that the adjective and the verb form are always without the T. When they want to nominalize it, you have to suffix it with a T. So this T, a T suffix is added to this word, and now the word becomes charcoal or fuel or material for fire. It's also animals' dung for fuel. And so you have this other variation, jahab, is a kind of seed used in making incense, kifi. And so there's two hypotheses that I have that I've been testing in terms of the origin of the word jahab, meaning black. One has to deal with hair, and the other one has to do with these kifi incense seeds. And so that's what you see over here. These are kifi incense. And as you can see, the color is very dark to black. And so when we add the suffix T, then it becomes a word for charcoal. So it's not coal black, you know, as a root. It only has an association with coal once it has the T suffix. So this is from the online, the thesaurus language, you know, the Egyptian language thesaurus, written backwards, at least for English speakers. And so the entry is Habit, which is coal black, and then it says vom Had, from hair in the German. And so the example that they give in the text is this Hebenenut, Brot, un Schwarzfischnetz, and it's lifting nut bread and black fishing net. So notice that the root here is tahab, but this T here is not a part of the root itself. It is only present because of the T suffix of this word here. So this noun, fishing net, is given the feminine T form. And as a result of this root here being the adjective, and it describes the color of the fishing net and follows, it has to agree. That's what we mean by concord. So when I gave you that challenge, I said, you know, that the word Kemet cannot be the result of as we see here. So this is an example of the grammar rule that I was talking about. So because this T is not part of the root. So you will never find a word of a habit in the dictionary by itself, meaning black, because this is a derivative form, an inflectional form of the word, and is only the result of the previous noun for which it is described. And so you have Zahab, so-called coal black, and then when the T suffix is added, it becomes charcoal or black pigment. It becomes an entirely different word when it is actually suffixed by the deverbative T. It's not a feminine T, it's a deverbative T, which nominalizes verbs. So I hope this is making sense for people in the audience. So I think this is my last point. So and then, you know, if I have to go into, you know, saying the actual slides as far as method is concerned, I'll do that. But this is Dr. Oscar Pafuma. Now, he is a prominent linguist and Egyptologist out of Cameroon. Now, I told you that there's a number of scholars who have also, from the Diopian school, who have also argued against the word Kemet meaning black and having a black origin. And this is one of the authors. And I want to put one of his books here to show that, again, he is part of this Diopian school. And so this is his Cultural History of Black Africa in French. And it has a foreword by Dr. Theophilo Benga. And so he makes some, notes in here and then some scattered in some other articles. But I just wanted to show that, when you're talking about certain giants in the field of Egyptology in the Francophone world, Dr. Oscar Pafuma is one of those giants. And so in a 2007 article in Egyptographica, Volume 6, this word here, the bee and the country, from pages 45 through 48. It's just a 3-page article. I translated from the French here, his argument. And it reinforces. So this is in 2007. So I had an initial argument since 2002. In 2007 and 9, I also came across some other evidence, and so this is independent of mine. And so I've later incorporated his argument into the papers. So he says, I found some specific instances where the word, talking about Kemet, could have the semantic field of territory, country, and led me to search for another etymology. So beforehand, what he did is he showed some words. He lets us know what the standard argument is, that the word Kemet derives from a word Kim meaning black. And so he shows some other words, Kim, across different African languages, which mean black. But then he says, well, I have also some evidence that that's not the case, that it refers actually to territory or country, which led me to search for another etymology. And so he says, indeed, in Kemet, in these examples here, with the N23 glyph and the N36 glyph, this is irrigated land and the water channel, river glyph. Kemet, the spelling of the name Egypt may receive evidence from these determinatives, N23 and N36, as well as O49. See, everybody thinks this O49 is a quote-unquote town with crossroads. That is not the case. All it is another fancier version of N23. It's another irrigated land determinative. So the vast majority of the words Kemet are with words dealing with water. He says, but the first sign in this list of Sir Alan Gardner, an irrigation canal, and may determine the earth, the country as such, may determine the earth and the country as such. It replaces in the 11th dynasty, is replaced after in the 11th dynasty after the second sign, a channel with full water. And so anybody knows my article, I go through the process and I demonstrate that the N23 is really, there's another extended land determinative or classifier that this is, the N23 is a different variation of. And so it comes into being around this time of the 11th to 12th dynasty with the word Kemet itself and Tameri. And so land, country, and Egypt, the country, it deserves to be questioned. And so we continue. He says, it is difficult to imagine that Egypt is named Kemet because of black water regarding the Nile River and irrigation canals. Again, going off of the determinatives. So going by, for example, Diop's argument, he's saying that the word qualifies or describes the determinatives. So if that is the case, you can't argue that the Nile River was ever black. So it doesn't make any sense to describe the Nile, black water or black irrigation canal. It doesn't, make any sense. And so this is what he's saying right here. And in this case, the relationship between the country name and the chromatic group, Kemet, now with this is the version of Kemet that has the seated man and seated woman. That's the seed of all this controversy. The Egyptians becomes blurred. We can consider this in relation to the root Kim. So this is K, vowel, M, country. Our knowledge of Bantu languages leads us to propose a first set of cognates in this family. In the Runda language, Kumat Sun, farm, and Sun, a root of agriculture. And another variation is Jin that I have. So you might see in another publication I use Kumat Jin. In the Bassa language of Cameroon, Kom, farm, Esatako, Ikom, Inzim, Kom, country, Bakwiri, Kumi, country, Hong language, Guma, country, region. And so he lists himself as that. So that book that we talked about that's what he's citing right here. So the semantic field seems to suggest the idea of a site dedicated to agriculture, literally a country. But by good methodology, we cannot stop there. When you open a track, it remains the way to go, and it may eventually go elsewhere. I think that this search requires further investigation. It needs to continue and be extended to other families of African languages before going further. I cannot prejudge the outcome that will provide similar research in the fields of Nilo-Saharan, Cushitic, and Chadic, and other families in Niger-Congo or their ultimate validity. So he's ultimately saying here that, we need more investigation because these are contradicting, etymologies. And so there are other scholars like Jean-Claude Mboli, like Dr. Mubab Binge Bololo, like Dr. Kipkowitz Sambu, and others who also argue that Kemet doesn't mean black, that it has to deal with agriculture. Now, where I come in is that I'm the only one. Everybody, like this article, he's mentioned this stuff in passing. In Mboli, the same thing. Bilolo, the same. They're doing it in passing. But I'm the only one who started from ground zero and proved that this is in fact correct. And so that's what you'll get, the more fuller proof in the journal article, as well as the chapter dealing with this meaning of the word Kemet. And so I think I wanted to, no, I just had this one other slide. And so, this shows the almost the silliness of trying to define every instance of Kim as black. So you even have a temple in Hermothis that is called Per Kim Kim. And it has the 049 glyph. And it's a temple. And I've been to Egypt twice. I have yet to see a black temple anywhere. This has another connotation. And you can't take every instance of the word Kim to mean black. And so, again, all of us who are involved and have come to this conclusion all belong to the Diopian school, and we publish with other Diopian scholars. And so this is not an instance of going against Diop and Abinga. That's an emotional argument because they can't substantiate their arguments by way of actual evidence. And so I'll stop right here. And, if you have any questions or anything or any comments, we can go from there. You there, Brother Kalam? I guess I'm just going to take over the talk with the TV, the talk with the Titans.
Bear with me.
Back.
All right. I know you said if I've got any questions, we can go from there.
Okay.
Bear with me. Yeah. This is what I would love to actually do. You know what? Let's see, because I know I would love to take some questions from the audience, maybe get somebody in from the audience as well. I know that Janeb is just raring to go. But could you tell us the very first place or time? I know you said in this 11th dynasty, where the term Kemet is used to mean, the actual country and the empire of Kemet. Is that correct? Oh, do you know roughly on the who that was used?
I think one of the early examples is under Imhotep II. Okay. So I don't know if I have it on this presentation. Let me see. Well, here's an example here. This is from Dynasty 12 from the official Antep. And so this is from Golet's article. He says, "Then I and the entire force descended to the Black Land." So he's still defining it as Black Land. "Without there being any retreating of any follower or the death of a great person or a little person, I reaching the Black Land safely because of my skill in ascending to this place." And so you can see the word Kemet here used with the N23 glyph. And notice also that the Kim glyph is backwards. I think this was written in demonic or something like that. And so this is one of the earliest attestations of Kemet. And so, they try to literally translate it in the word here, but it's just the name of the place. And matter of fact, they tell you that it is a place. So one of the reasons why we cite this is because when you go into, see, this is what Diop failed to do. You would not see in any of Diop's work where he goes into the text and tries to understand the context for which the word Kemet is actually placed and how it fits in the whole entire sentence. And so neither does Obenga and a lot of these other African scholars when it comes to this word here. So the first order of business is you always go to the primary text. But Diop doesn't do that in any of his texts because he was going strictly off of the dictionary entries. And this is evident in his work because he doesn't, we don't know if he just didn't have access, because we got to remember the times. This is in the early 70s. And so there's no Egyptology department in Senegal. Obenga had time. He resided mainly in his adult years in France for a time. So, you have access to the museums and things, and you can check some artifacts. And so relatively speaking, London is a hop, skip, and a jump. And, you can go to the British Museum. But, that's not the case in Senegal. So that may have been a limitation for him. But he never analyzes any of the words Kemet in their actual hieroglyphic context. Only a few, but those are how they're written. Those are the examples given in the Erman and Grandpa Wartebush. But we know that this is a place because of this word, this phrase here, pert in set. Descend, to go forth, in or to place. This is this word set here means this place. So, and my skills ascending to this place. So it lets you know that they're not describing anybody. They're only referencing it as a place. That's why the whole toponym and place names come into play here. Let me see if I have the other example on this one. No, not in this slide. I have to open another document to get to it. So, but that was just one example.
Okay. And another thing is, are we saying that although Kem and Kemet may look possibly sound the same, but there is an etymological difference? Is that correct in saying?
Yes. So
okay.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, that's just one of the points that was, alluded to in the presentation. And so, as I mentioned before, and this is another thing that Reggie got wrong, I have no idea why he just continuously misinterprets Like he tried to make it seem as if I'm using this slide right here to make any kind of comparisons linguistically between Egyptian and collagen, even though I can and I have. This slide was not that. This has nothing to do with that. I'm just pointing out here of what the issue is. And so, you know, outside of Egyptian, we see, for example, in the collagen language, that if we was to gather a gang of words that have the consonant sequence KM, you know, possibly followed with a T or not, you know, with the vowels, we can see that all these are different words, right? It's just no mistaking that Kimoi is not the same as Kimyit. You wouldn't confuse these. Or Kimut versus Kimat Maata, or Kemut, or Kemiut. Like all these Kamit, Kamama, all these, you could not confuse these. They're not homonyms. But if we take away the vowels like they do in ancient Kemet, then they start to look alike or look similar. So we have, for example, this Kemet here, meaning the late, the deceased. It derives from this root here, Kim, to die. And we have this Kemimit, or Kemet, or whatever. You know, we don't know what the vowels is. We're pretending we don't know what the vowels is. Means a famine. You know, or Kemet, his, her mother. Or a place of maternal uncles, Kim. So they have a word, Kim, darkness, that's possibly related to Kim, black in Egyptian. We have yet to prove that, but this looks like a good candidate. So it would be erroneous on our end to assume just randomly, if I was to try to figure out the meaning of this, the root of this word Kemet, meaning nape or back of the neck, and then make an argument that it derives from the root Kim, darkness. You see the problem here? So this is essentially what is going on in the, with Egyptologists dealing with the word Kim in Egyptian, because we have the graphemes that represent the sequence KM in Egyptian, but there are tons of different words that have nothing to do with black. So it raises the question, by what process did they exclude all the other KM sequences to come to the conclusion that the word Kemet derives from Kim black? What source goes through that process? What scholar, what page numbers is that actually being done? That's the question. And so I just use this as an example in a modern day language of the type of situation we have in Egyptian. And so they have this word emit, country. However, this is a short form because this group here, and I should preface this with, the collagen people are actually descendants from the ancient Egyptians. They migrated south into Uganda and through Sudan, and some still live in Sudan, and spread into Uganda and Kenya, in the western part of Ethiopia and the eastern part of Congo, because they're a semi-nomadic warrior clan people. And so they kind of spread out all throughout this area, and they left at the time of the Greeks. And this is the topic of discussion in 2 books by one of those descendants, who also is an Egyptologist and got his PhD in Coptic studies, Dr. Kipkoech Sambu out of Kenya, who's a collagen. And so they've been having oral traditions, and we actually have written documents from Europeans who first encountered them, where they in the late 1800s and early 1900s, before any kind of Christianization or introduction to Islam or any of that Egyptology, they were talking about that they originate in Kemet. And so this word here, mit, country, is the word Kemet. However, like in one of the variations of Kemi or Kemet in Coptic is Chem. and the K sound, is followed by an aspiration H, and it becomes hem in one of the dialects of Coptic, and so that hem survived in the Pukut variant or dialect of Collagen, but in his dialect of Kipkuich Sambu, they lost the H sounds, and so that's why his dialect is me. But in the northern branch of Collagen, the Pukut dialect is hem, country. And then they have Yemit, homeland, country, state, terrain, region. And so you have the actual descendants of ancient Egyptians with a cognate for the word Kemet, and this is how it's defined. And it has nothing to do in the language with blackness. And so when we go into the Egyptian, this is what the examples that I use. These are very, and there's more. There's a lot more words that use the I6 hieroglyph, Kim, that means different things. Like Kim here, to make full. Kemet, a Serapyramid temple in Memphis, in Mennefer. And this is scribe people, has to do with scribing. Then Kemet, a book of wisdom, has nothing to do with a black book. Or Kemet At, a moment in time, it has to do with flickering. There's a word Kim meaning to sparkle and to flicker. Kim, to complain. That has nothing to do with blackness. There's no black complaining. And then remember that Kemetiyu that I've mentioned, the inhabitants of Erebus. That's what that is. This is not Kemet the nation. And this is Kim because it means to perform or to do. And then this word kayet here is the word for work. So it's to perform work is a verb, to perform, to do something. There, you can't black to do, you can't black to perform. So again, the question is for any researcher, how did you distinguish the word Kim, meaning black, out of all these other variants of Kim in the language that use the same hieroglyph for Kemet? Who's that scholar? Name them. And so what you discover when you actually do the groundwork is that there's a lot of assuming going on. So these Egyptologists made an assumption, and I know my hypothesis is that it's based on Herodotus, because Herodotus makes the notion that, Egypt is known I think it's in the same text where he says that Egypt, is the gift of the Nile, right? The kingdom of Egypt is the gift of the Nile. And so he's talking about the alluvial soil that is left after the Nile floods. But he doesn't at all connect it to the word Kemet. He never makes that argument. He just makes an observation that there's this black alluvial soil that's left on the banks of the Nile as a result of the after the flooding. So, who is these scholars that made that conclusion definitively? What is that text? How did they come to that conclusion that they could separate? I could just easily, based on that logic, say Kemet is the complaining land. And what evidence would you have against me to argue against Kemet deriving from the root Kim, the verb meaning to complain, or to make full, or to flicker? There's a word for Kim and Kemet meaning seeds and plants. How come they didn't say it's the land of plants or seeds? There's a gang of these words. And so, it's just a lot of sloppy scholarship. And so when Diop comes along, again, he's only looking at the Wartabush and a few other dictionaries. He names 3. There's a French dictionary, the Egyptian I think it's Egyptian lexic, or lexical Egyptian. And he cites, I think, Gardner's grammar or James P. Allen, one of them, and the Wartabush. So in chapter 5, those are the 3 main texts that he uses when arguing for the word Kemet. So all of his work has to deal with, derives from dictionaries. So all he has to go by is the dictionary. So he takes on the assumptions of the Europeans on this word. And so that's why, you know, we have the importance of the classifiers here. So the example that I gave is if I took away the classifiers for these words, how would you know the difference between Kemet, disease, and Kemet, pupil? Or we, mummy, and we, the pronoun I, me, my? How would you make the distinction between these two? How would you know which is which? And let's just assume that all of them in a sentence doesn't have classifiers either. So how would you know what word is which without the vowels written and without the classifiers? You would just be guessing. And so that's why there's the importance of the classifiers. They distinguish between words. So now you see in this slide, I put the classifier. So it has the mummy A53 classifier. So that's how we know it's a mummy. It has a picture of the mummy to reinforce, to let you know what class this word belongs to. And pronouns don't get classifiers. Ever. So with Kemet, disease, we have this sign normally used for internal tissues and diseases. And so we know the word Kemet, pupil, because it shows a pupil in the eye. It's really simple. The Egyptians was not trying to be esoteric and, you know, that you had to interpret it with your third eye and that you need the light candles and incense to get the hieroglyphic language. They made it easy for you. So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Wow. Okay. That was, you know, a 101 in the language, in grammar, in the lexicon itself, and determinatives, as well as comparative linguistics. That was real powerful. Mm-hmm. You know what, family, the show is going to get real exciting right now, because I know you guys, you know that the show is called Titans TV. Okay, Titans TV with a plural S at the end. Okay, I'm jumping on my linguistics right about now. I'm gonna get technical. I'm gonna talk about the morphology, the way that you can add an S at the end so you know it's plural, baby. Jeez. So right now, okay, we've had one Titan appear on Titans TV. But Titans TV wouldn't be Titans TV if we didn't have a second Titan to actually come on, appear, buck heads with each other, and hopefully ask each other a couple of questions so we can get a greater clarity on the points that are currently being raised so far. Okay, so family, please excuse me, okay, because I know it's 1 a.m. in the morning, and I've got my son, and he's struggling to fall asleep, and I'm gonna have to do the old school disciplining of him to make sure that the pain sets him to sleep. So what I'm going to do whilst I'm actually away is please, Nechineb, can you open up your mic, pose a question, okay? Pose a question, and afterwards I'll get you back in to actually explain the statement that you made earlier on.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. Peace, everyone. Peace, brother Asar.
Peace. What's good?
How you doing, bro? Yeah, man, me too. I just have just a question. I just want to start off just at the beginning. Can y'all hear me well? Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. I just want to ask the question because you repeatedly stated that Dr. Job assumed. I read your article. I heard your presentation at the Job's conference, which were excellent. Just disagreed with a few points. And you stated that Dr. Job assumed, and here on this platform, you stated that he didn't provide any text. I just want to ask you that, are you aware that Dr. Job applied text And are you aware that Dr. Job did not assume he described the term Kemet using grammar rules?
We've been through this several times, and he described what he thought was a grammar rule, which wasn't. And he never, ever looked at these in the actual text. And I'm about to pull up the actual chapter 5 of Diop's text that we can all see for ourselves. And so see, I'm going to download it so I can make it bigger. Transfer it to this other computer. See, here. Did I not just download it? What's going on? Hold on, audience. I apologize. For, this to go. Downloads. Go back into taste. There we go. So we're going to pull up Diop, chapter 5. So I have some more Diop on here. And let's go all the way to chapter 5. And so, you know, I don't have to necessarily translate from French. We can just, this is just something you can easily see for those who are familiar with translating. So this is chapter 5, expressions and particular terms. So, you know, he argues here that Kim, you know, comes from the burning coal, and he alleges a cognate in Wolof here. He defines, you know, Kim as black, and here in terms of burning, when he says Kemet here, the Egyptians, the blacks, literally. And, you know, this is another good note to know right here, 53. So in this footnote here, he cites the word bush, but he says that he actually, this idea was discovered by a brother Sosu in Sudan. So he takes Diop, he takes the argument from this person here who he doesn't give any real background to, and I'm not familiar with in the other chapters of the original text if he actually says who he is, but he just says that it's really the discovery of him, and so he's taking on the argument from in brother in Sudan out of Senegal. And so here's the part where, you know, he mentions the Calhoun, you know, saying papyrus. So this, if we can read this, it says this term is the most powerful, so that fort is powerful, and the most explicit term which existed in the Pharaonic language. designating, the blackness and of the Egyptians, did not apply it to the Nubians right here, but saying to themselves. It or it is a collective form or a collective term, by putting the adjective black in the feminine singular. It's the feminine singular here, followed by the determinative of a man and a woman and the three plural marks. So that's what he says in this area. So the trois de plural, three plural marks. And so it is a matter of a precise grammatical rule. So this is where Netanyahu keeps talking about a grammar rule, a grammatical rule of ancient Egyptian, which governs the format or the formation of collective nouns. And it is conversely, one wishes to translate the word black into Egyptian thematically, the only adequate term or translation, only adequate term or term adequate is, saying this one. All other translations, would be grammatically incorrect or fanciful. And this term is attested in the Papyrus of Calhoun, or the Calhoun Papyrus. But you notice he never provides the actual text in which this version of Kim, in terms of the transliteration and translation of the Calhoun text, and others, like it. Because there's only, I think, 2 places that you'll find this version of Kim. He never does it. We can look. So you have this, he starts into another discussion, of how the word Kemet here means the black Egypt, the country of blacks, and remarkably like black Africa and white Africa, in terms of the color of men in the earth. And so this is how he's arguing that this word Kemet here is. And so this Harry Tep Kemet Desheret, this is in the Wartabush as one of the forms. So he's saying the chief of the black country and the white or the reds. And so, but never, all this is in the Wartabush. This isn't in. And so he's giving you the citation. So look at page 54 here. So this word here, this is another variation of something similar to this. And so 54, we go Wartabush, 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 Wartabush. He never goes and cites the text and looks at the word Kemet in this context. And so again, this is where he gets the word Kemet from. He says the Egyptians, by in opposition of other peoples and strangers, the blacks or the Negroes or the blacks, etymologically. So that's what he's arguing. This is Kemet again. And so we already proved that Kemet does not refer to Egyptians. It only refers to the people of Athribis. But to his credit, again, this derives from the Wartabush. The scholars have since corrected the Ehrman and Grappa Wartabush. There are a lot of bad entries in the Wartabush, which you would expect since they hand wrote the entire 5 volumes, over a number of, damn near 20 years. And so never, you can go, we can look at it right here. There's no translation of a section of a text or anything in this whole entire argument. And so this whole page here is 3.5 pages. The whole argument is 3.5 pages. Nowhere. All dictionary entries. So even this little phrase here. And so if you've actually seen the Wartabush dictionaries, you'll recognize this because they're all on the right-hand side of the entries for Kemet. These other phrases that you're seeing right here. And so we're coming to the end. This is the end of the section. No, he'll cite where it's from because that's what's in the dictionaries. But he won't go into the text. So that's how we know when he went into the text that he couldn't have come to this conclusion. So Diop never went into the text. And so we addressed this in the first the first discussion. So let me see if I have it in this slide, because I think I have many different versions of my presentation. So here's one here. So here's the hymn to Sesostris, for example. So you never see this in Diop's work, ever. And I have damn near all Diop's work. There's a few articles and things I don't have, but the vast majority of Diop's works, you won't see this. You'll see this in Obinga. Obinga does this type of work. He goes into the sources and he transliterates. He'll provide the hieroglyphs for them, and then he'll give a translation. Diop never does this regarding this issue here. So here's a hymn to Sesostris III, Dynasty 12. And so you see that we have this version of the hieroglyphs with the seated man and woman. And so we made this argument before. When you actually read the text, just like in the other example that we showed, it only refers to a place. It's never describing people. So it was after he had ruled Egypt or Kemet, and after he had put the desert in his company, that he came to us. It was after he had protected the two lands, and after he had pacified the two banks, that he came to us. It was after he had caused Egypt to live, and after he had removed its needs, that he came to us. And this is a place that they're referring to, not people. And this is confirmed by the grammar. Everybody wants to skip the grammar rules, the actual ones that count. And so when you actually do it in a sentence, this suffix S here is a third person singular feminine for this root here. And it refers back to this. And so we named this. We went through this already. The way this passage is worded lets us know that it is talking about the state as a political entity and not the Nisbe adjective for Kemetiu, those of Kemet. This is supported by the fact that Kemet is used in the same manner as all of the other political locations in the text. The names Desheret, Tawi, Idibri in the original text does not employ personal determinatives. Furthermore, after the second sentence containing the word Kemet, it refers back to the word Kemet by its means of the third person singular feminine suffix pronoun S. It's, not they or her, nothing like that. It's it as a place. If it spoke about the people, we would expect sin, their, they, them, not it. And so when we go into the other papyrus, hopefully I have it in this slideshow. I think I have it in this one. Nope, I have to open another one. Which one did I do? To the top of names, we'll open the top of names.
Can I speak? Hey, bro, Asar, can I respond?
Yes, you can.
That's a good point that you brought up on the grammar of the suffix pronouns. But I want to tell you that you're still inaccurate according to grammar. So I'm gonna cite a grammar rule, and then I'm gonna share my screen, and we're gonna look at the same text you provided, and we're gonna look at another text that's translated by the TLA, and we got the grammar rule that supports it as well. Now, I like that you did that. That was nice, but that's not explaining the full grammatical operations of that text. So I'm gonna share my screen and we're gonna explain the full operations of that text. Hold on a second. Do you see my screen?
We can see it.
All right.
Well, hold on.
You can't see it that good?
No, it's not that. Kalam has it focused on my screen.
Oh, okay.
So he needs to come back and focus it on your screen.
Okay. Man, how was your weekends though, brother?
My weekends are well. My weekends are well. Just school and writing. That's it.
Right.
That's my life at this moment.
So I heard they contacted both of us for the journal. So you probably aware of that already.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Kalam, if you can hear us, we need you
Yeah.
to come to the computer.
Wow. Well, I guess it's all good. That man, page 30. Page 33.
Kalam went to sleep already.
Oh man. So do you gotta
At least
stop sharing so I can present mine, and then I'm not
no,
going to be on here long, really.
no, it's not that. It's
Uh-huh.
regardless. Even if I stop sharing, it's he has the. I don't know. I mean, yeah, you got do you have a YouTube or do you just mainly go through Facebook Live?
No, I really don't be. I'm trying to, get this work published in this. I've been doing work, so I really been, I don't.
Yeah, what I was saying is that it's a feature where like
Yeah.
you see that our thumbnails at the bottom of the screen.
Right.
If the host clicks on any one of those thumbnails, it will just stay focused on that for the audience. So when he got up and left, it was focused on me. So he would have to physically come
Right.
back in and
Got
uh,
you, bro.
so that's the problem. So I mean, in the meantime, you can at least just explain it and then reiterate it when he comes back from his
Okay.
nap or whatever he's
Well,
doing.
Can you go back to your slide where you showed the papyrus of Calhoun, which Dr. Joke mentioned and sourced for his collective now argument.
The new hay. What's on here? At least this one. Damn. Okay.
There we go. Yes. This form here, as I showed in my last presentation, is clearly a collective. A collective for the audience that doesn't know what a collective is only a word of assembly or a group word, as Dr. Jope explained. It's just a word that is not plural, but it is indicating semantically a group of people. So here he provides a good argument, but it's just not enough according to the entirety of Medu Neter grammar rules taught to us in the Institute of Kemetic Philology. So we know if we go to a book, grammar book, Middle Egyptian Grammar by James E. Hodge, 1997, SSEA Publications. It was published in Toronto. Page 33 indicates that we can apply according to context, according to different situations, a reinterpretations of suffix pronouns. So suffix pronouns definitions, according to Middle Egyptian Grammar, page 33 by Hodge, is not set. That is not a set thing that we should lock in. Here's why. Let's go to page 33. I'm gonna read it from my paper because I'm presenting this in Dr. Obenga's journal on review. I think both of us, excellent scholars here, was invited to write a journal. So this is just a little bit of some of the grammar faults that he's presenting here. Middle Egyptian grammar, Hot states, page 33. The Egyptian suffix pronoun is often ambiguous and different translations are sometimes required. So I'm going to read that again. In Middle Egyptian grammar, Hot states, page 33, the Egyptian suffix pronoun, which he's using a third singular feminine suffix pronoun, which falls in the same category as suffix pronouns. The Egyptian suffix pronoun is often, they use the term often, ambiguous, and different translations are sometimes required. Now, this grammar rule is simple. In context, that the suffix pronouns are not fixed. Here's why. I'm going to go to another inscription. And this inscription shows that in the Eastfield grave complex of Mary C. Ankh III, they uses a third singular feminine suffix pronoun as here. And when the third feminine singular suffix pronoun is attached to a noun, when it's attached, the meaning can sometimes be ambiguous, meaning that according to context, the meanings can change. Suffix pronouns don't have a set meaning. I'm about to read a inscription, a separate inscription, then we're going to go back. And in the separate inscription, it has the suffix third singular feminine pronoun s attached to a term called Mehitiu, which is a Nisbi, meaning northern dwellers, and it's Mehitiu s. I'm going to read the whole thing. Perit, Misha, Hina, Nebet, Hin, Mehitiu s. Coming out of marshes with lotus buds from their northern dwellers. So here, and also if we go back to the TLA, which I'm going to show if the brother Kalam is up, but if not, I'm going to write it in a paper to Dr. Jope's journal, is that the suffix s is often ambiguous, and it is proven throughout Meta-Nature grammar that in context, that in some cases, in often cases, the s can be translated as bear. So when it's used as s, when it's attached in back of a noun describing people, according to grammar, which I have seen, it has been ambiguously translated as there. So as we see here in the Kahun Papyrus, this form, which I'm going to explain grammatically according to Meta-Nature grammar rules, that this form, the collective, is clearly a collective noun, which we all know that adjective can function as any type of noun, any type, whether the collective noun or any other type of noun. So here's just a type of noun that the adjective is functioning as. And in this collective form, it matches other collective forms, which I break down the glyphs, glyph for glyph, which are seeing me do it grammatically. And we know that this is a collective grammatically. So we don't go past yonder grammar rule. So we stay with grammar rule. Now, the red, he has his s, which is a third feminine singular suffix pronoun, which is an ambiguous glyph. This glyph is not set in definition. This glyph can be interpreted according to the grammar of what it's speaking of, or in this case, is speaking of Kemet, which is a collective, which is for them. So in another Kahun Papyrus, it shows the same thing. It says in the Hemza Sesotris the third, Nef, Sunk Nf, Kemet, Kesser Nf, Shinu S. The TLA translated as there. They has he has come after he has animated the inhabitants of Egypt and has eliminated their needs. So this is a separate and second case of the ambiguous suffix pronoun s, according to Meta-Netic grammar. It can be ambiguous, and I'm gonna read the grammar rule before I be quiet. The grammar rule is Middle Egyptian grammar, Hot States, page 33. The Egyptian suffix pronoun is often ambiguous, and different translations are sometimes required, as I proved in inscriptions.
Okay. I appreciate that. This is why we are a little bit more thorough in our investigations. And so what you're trying to argue is, or trying to throw ambiguity into the argument and say that it could be interpreted this way. We really don't know. But
No,
at the same time,
I showed text.
no, what you should have done was to find multiple interpretations from Egyptologists for this very presentation and how they interpret it and why they interpret it as such. And then you can say, because you're going to a totally different text with a totally different word that it's attached to. And so we can tell that this is not a feminine, a collective noun. And so now we're going to go into, so this is one of the reasons why we went through that process to establish that the T is not feminine or collective, you know, based on the comparative analysis. And so that it is a place name suffix. And there are a number of Egyptologists who are...
Question, you said based on, what is it based in again, brother? You said your comparative analysis?
Yes, comparative analysis.
Okay.
So, and not only that, just the rules of the language. And so I went through this already. This is one of the reasons why we focused on place names. And this presentation I did on Egyptian place names and the grammar for place names. And so when you recognize first and foremost that Kemet is a place name, you have to first understand the grammatical rules for place names. And most place names end in a W or a T. And this is recognized by Egyptologists as place name suffixes. That has nothing to do with the collective. It has nothing to do with the feminine. And so, you know, here's a few examples that I gave, you know, beforehand as it regards to W suffix in these place names. And then here's variations of the T suffix in place names. We can find the same thing, the T, in languages like Chiluba and Sumerian, and the W in Hassa. So I deal with Hassa at the beginning of this. And so we go to our good friend Mboli. And on page 351 of his Origin of African Languages, the year released in 2010, he talks about these place name suffixes. And so, again, this is a standard in Egyptology. And so he, based on his comparative analysis, provides an etymology for these place name suffixes. So notice, just like in the other, I didn't show it in this one, but the other Egyptologists, that the T and the W are place name suffixes, and they have nothing to do with feminine. They don't derive from the same word as the word for woman, which gives the word for feminine in these forms. They ultimately, T and W derive from the same root, Kuri. So this is how you find it in Hassa, for example. So we have to understand that Kemet is a place name. And like most place names in the Egyptian language, they either suffix with T, and there are forms that don't have T and don't have W. And so, but the vast majority are suffixed by W or T. So here's one text, study of Semitic toponymic types of the 2nd millennium BC, which goes into you know, toponyms and things of that nature, I can go through that later. You'll see like the T suffix, because that T suffix for place names also exists in the Beja language, which is just south of Egypt. And so we'll deal with that a little later. I want to, so here's just, say some more text verifying that the T is a nominal suffix. This is the word for place name, nomen loci. And he said, or it could be collective, but they in the text he settles for a nomen loci, which is a place name. Same thing for this variation of Wakimit, which is a place name for in the Sudan. So it's a place name, place. So let's get to this particular rule that we're skipping over. That, because we always got to be able to demonstrate some things from multiple angles. So I'll get a little pasty at this moment. Because I'm not going from the beginning. Oh, there we go. Here we go. So again, in Mboli's work, he lets you know that first and foremost, that the Chiena Intu, which I call Chiena Intu, but Mboli and Theophilo Benga call Negro Egyptian, that it is a language of classes. And so what we got to understand is that the language was spoken. It was not simply a written language. So the idea of the classifiers existing as a written form only is incorrect. They also have classifiers in the words itself, the grammar of the words. This is how they form words with classes. And so he's given it in a few of them in the language. The affix in terms of nouns here, and these are verbs. So the affix of the animate, the affix of the collective, the affix of place. Notice that the place and the collective are two different affixes. Affix of direction for the noun, and then the affix of the stative, the completed, the incomplete, and the infinitive. So these are attached to the verbs, and it makes them verbal nouns in Negro Egyptian classic.
Excuse me. These are you're basing this on protoforms?
No, this is not based on protoforms, but what is actually in the language. So the protoforms is just letting you know that the language is class.
No, I'm saying the picture you have up. Okay, let me break down the last picture.
Hold on.
Protoforms.
Just to let you know, it's late right now.
Okay.
It's late right now.
So let me just
end hour, or we're about to off the show. Okay. And I don't want the show to be too long.
Okay, y'all. I'm out. Peace. Thank you, brother Kalam. Peace.
Okay. So family, Asar, if I can close down the show and just leave our audience with some lasting information, we definitely need to continue probing into this a bit. I think the good brother has something coming up tonight. I think Amon Ra Squad has got a show coming on tonight. I believe it might be at 9 p.m. I don't know if it's Eastern Standard Time or whatever times there is. But if you could just drop any off, it'd really be great, so people can migrate to wherever else they need to migrate to.
Yeah, we're on the Amon Ra Squad show. We are going to have some guests from the group Raising Awareness out here on the East Coast of the United States. And we're going to address some issues that they raised in a previous conversation that they had on their YouTube channel, which involved the naming of the Amon Ra Squad in their concerns. And so we're going to have a dialogue with them and have them address and demonstrate and provide evidence for their arguments. And, we're going to respond accordingly. And so that's going to be on the Amon Ra Squad channel. So look for the Armor Rock Squad media page, and that should start within the next 30 minutes. So I know for people out there in the UK, it's mad late, but for us over here, the night is just getting started. So I appreciate the time. We may have to continue this later, and hopefully with no interruptions this time, so we can actually finish the thought and keep it short and sweet. So hopefully we can do a part 2, so we can get to the hard hitting saying points of it. But as we demonstrated multiple times already, the word Kemet has nothing to do with black. It is simply a word for a place with water, a river or rain present, and just water in general, and plants and vegetation. It's a fertile land that human beings can live in. And ancient Egypt isn't the only one with the word Kemet or a dialectical variation of it. It's all across Africa. And in not one other language can you trace it to a word meaning black. So with that, I will say appreciate it, and hope your audience enjoyed what we had thus far, and thank you for sticking with us, those on the other side of the waters, and until next time.
Thank you, brother Asar Imhotep, the Grand Master Scribe of our generation. Asar Imhotep. We have to give credit and praise where credit and praise is due. I'm not gonna front it up. I learned a lot today, and I've even understood your arguments at, exponentially, compared to how I first envisioned it. So I'm very much so grateful for this today, and I hope you guys as well have actually. I know I'm going to be going back, replaying this tomorrow, replaying this on future days, and also take a lot of notes, and also try to do my own research on this. And I hope you guys will do the same. The brothers brought up some great scholars who a similar argument as himself. And it's just excellent to see that, across the continents, there's other people delving into this and they're similar conclusions. So it's always great to have, a reaffirmation from others that you're on the right track. So it's absolutely brilliant. Thank you, Asar Imhotep, for bringing back, real scholarship on Titans TV. And may we continue to have you back here on Titans TV, and you pushing for the community to grow in consciousness and to grow in the academic discipline itself. So, family, we're finally signing out. So peace and love to you all. I'm just gonna leave this right here. Asar Imhotep is sharing his screen right now, and it's got the Remetch.
This is just another point.
Do you want to just drop that?
Yeah, it's just another example that the word Kemet is only referred to as a place. So it says the Remetch Kemet, the people of Kemet, who are there. So this word M, this is this here, is there. So they're always referring to a place, which is there, versus here. You never see it referred to as describing anyone. And so the whole idea that Kemet is feminine is not right. It's an error. And so we can prove this here in this New Kingdom text, where we have the masculine singular, which is in concord with the word Kemet here. So, that takes another discussion. But the point is that no matter, every single time you actually go into the text, it only refers to a place and never describes people. You will never see the Egyptians refer to themselves as Kemetid. Only the people of Kemet, this direct genitive here. So this was made known to Diop, and he just totally skipped over. And we know that it was known to him because it's documented in the people of the people in the ancient Egypt and the Cyphermen of the Neurotic Script. So I was just flowing through it. Yeah, I wasn't trying to go into specific places.
Powerful. All right, family. We're going to sign out now. Peace. Peace and love all, and I'll see you guys on the other side.